reached a human crisis unlike any that we've experienced in the last 75 years.
Any one side has too much, the other side will oppose it.
We've done a lot of things to create the imbalances that we have today.
COVID-19 has laid bare the systemic social inequities. Addressing these larger problems must become our priority.
We have to make sure that the economy actually works for the people.
It's not just about growth for growth's sake, but how we share that prosperity.
It is not sustainability or profit, it is profit through sustainability.
We have to reskill our people to be successful, and if they're more prosperous, the companies are going to be more prosperous.
The most important tools are education and technology.
Technology creates opportunities so that people are able to move to greener industries.
It's not about not knowing that we are in a climate emergency. It's about choosing to take action.
For that, we need to act decisively in the support of renewable energy.
The science is very clear today that the sustainable path is more attractive.
We can focus on the short-term benefit, or we can look further to solve bigger issues.
We need unprecedented collaboration to create systemic change.
It means redesigning the instruments we currently have
on a completely different trajectory, and that doesn't leave anybody behind.
We are one community, and we have to remember that.
Good afternoon from Geneva. Thank you for joining this Resetting Geopolitics Leadership Panel. This is the 5th day of the Davos agenda and is really focused on advancing global and regional cooperation. Last year was filled with immense uncertainties, let's face it. But one thing was made clear: global cooperation is not a luxury, it's a necessity. COVID anywhere is COVID everywhere. And yet, at the very moment that we need deeper collaboration, we have seen competitive instincts threaten to overtake cooperative mindsets. Indeed, this past fall, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the world essentially failed when it came to cooperation, unity, and solidarity. That's quite a tough message. And at such a critical and challenging moment for the world, I'm really proud that we have such a distinguished panel here to explore how we can strengthen global cooperation to ensure we exit the pandemic in a stronger position than we entered it. Joining us are Minister Taro, the Minister in charge of Administrative Reform and Regulatory Reform of Japan, but also previously Defense, Foreign Minister. Kyung-Wha, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. His Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia. Retno LP Marsudi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. And Ying, Vice Chairperson of Foreign Affairs, Committee of the 13th National People's Congress, People's Republic of China. So we have a great panel and we have a lot to discuss. Maybe start with you, Minister Taro, first. Good to see you. We know that currently you're also in charge of the whole COVID pandemic situation and handling it in Japan. Still, the numbers are very, very low. You come out of this in a very strong way, but no, it's all about vaccination. And we're seeing a lot of vaccination nationalism in the world. Are you concerned that also this COVID-19 crisis can lead to less global solutions, even if many of the challenges we're faced with, being climate change or pandemics, don't know any kind of borders, will then end up in a result where there's less multilateralism and more national focus? Or are you an optimist?
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's 8 in the evening in Tokyo. I'm sitting in my parliamentary apartment. I just finished the dinner. And now I'm in charge of delivering vaccine to 120 million Japanese people. And I'm a little worried about the current situation. when COVID-19 hit everyone in a big way, we had been concerned if there might have been some disruption in delivering foodstuff or importing oil, natural gas, and other source of energy. We were quite concerned because we heavily rely on import of foodstuff and energy. But thanks to everybody, it didn't happen. We have been able to import foodstuff, energy, and other essential stuff. Although, yes, there was a problem getting masks at some time last year, but it was a very short disruption. So I was very confident about the global supply chain of vaccine. But now I'm a bit concerned that EU has announced that EU may block the export of vaccine produced in Europe until sufficient amount is provided to European people before they allow any export to the third countries. We are planning to import vaccine produced in EU to Japan, and the other type of vaccine produced in United States sent to Europe for packaging, and then we import the viral to Japan. And now we are concerned that two types of those vaccine may be blocked in Europe. We never suspected that. So I'm very concerned some government may try to be more nationalistic. It is understandable to put their own people first, but we are living in on the same planet, and the supply chain now goes global. And it is not wise to start disrupting this global supply chain in one way. Then it could lead to some kind of retaliation, and we could ended up trying to produce everything in own country, and that is not economical, and many countries that is not possible. So it is time for the leaders of the states to sit down and have online conversation how we can solve this vaccine problem. We need a global vaccine strategy to deliver necessary vaccine to those who are in need most. So it's time for the leaders to sit down and discuss. We hit the same issue with masks, and we have seen some country trying to block export of some important material based on their global strategy, or some country trying to put up the barrier suddenly for the import from other country as a tool of a global strategy. We should not allow anyone to do that. That's why we set up WTO and set up trade rules. So we are just about to see some nationalism coming up, and the leader could turn inward to solve the domestic problem and put people in other country in down the line. So we are living in the same planet. We need to tackle the climate change together. We need to solve the issue of a global disarmament issue together. And we need to grow our economy together. So it is time for us to get the mechanism of United Nations, EU, G20, G7, all the global mechanism we have to use and solve this issue. I'll stop here.
Arigato. Thank you so much, Minister Kono Taro. Just a short following up question, and then we'll move, because we should also look at what will be the kind of collaboration we will see in the years to come, and not at least in your region. I mentioned, Minister, that you also have been the foreign minister, but also the defense minister. And previously you have also raised the wish to have a stronger regional cooperation with India, Australia, and the US. And then we also know that you're collaborating with the whole East Asia, including China, on the trade side. What are the dilemmas you're seeing when it comes to priorities on values, or also really the interest of Japan, the national interest?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we need to put the value first, the value of democracy, value of rule of law, human rights. They're important. And without those values, we will not be able to prosper in the economy. So we are trying to talk about the post-COVID world. Many defense ministers that I talked to when I was defense minister are quite concerned this world may be divided into democracy and authoritarian regime, free society versus Orwellian regime. We need to sit down with a country that has same value, that put democracy, rule of law, human rights together. We need to sit down with a country like ASEAN, Republic of Korea, United States, Europe, Australia, Canada, India, other like-minded country, so that we can keep this liberal international order that has brought about economic prosperity since the end of the World War II. So definitely we need to put the value first, and then all the economic prosperity and other interests would come following it.
Thank you so much. I think this is a natural bridge also to you, Foreign Minister of Republic of Korea, Kyung-Wha. You have also a long career in the UN in your past, and know, of course, listening to Minister Kono Taro, but also seeing what kind of cooperation do we need now dealing with COVID, climate change, but multilateralism in general. What will be Korea's priorities moving forward, and what is your recommendation?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this panel. It's wonderful to be joining and sharing the same screen with some very good friends and partners that I've worked with over the years. This will be one of my final acts as foreign minister before I depart in about a week's time. So all the more delighted that I have this opportunity to share thoughts with you and through this panel with the global audience. I think, obviously 2020 overwhelmed all of us with the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the video very tellingly showed, it just exposed the weakest and the most vulnerable links in every society. But also it's been kind of a stress test for a world that was somewhat being unanchored, very interconnected, but increasingly fragmented, with the tide turning against globalization. And I think COVID-19 came at the time when this fragmenting global unity was needed to be exposed somehow, and it certainly has been exposed in a very, very destructive way. And we failed. We failed the stress test, as the Secretary General has made very clear, with over 100 million affected and 2 million dead. Clearly, we have failed, and the numbers continue to grow. In hindsight, I think there are lots of lessons to be learned, and perhaps things we could have done differently to save more lives. And perhaps it's excusable that we didn't know better about the novel virus or how to respond to it because it was novel. It was an unknown quantity when it struck us. But one thing was very clear from the very beginning in the early weeks, that the virus travels across borders, knows no borders. The global community is in this together. And unless the whole world is safely protected from the virus, no country, no people will be fully safe again. But still, it has been an uphill battle, to put it mildly, to forge the unity of purpose needed to fight the pandemic and recover from its devastating consequences. I think the unprecedented speed with which the vaccines have been developed certainly raised hopes that the end of the pandemic is within sight. And I have to salute the researchers and scientists who have succeeded in these endeavors, and also to the governments that have funded these efforts. But I think Minister Kono has already pointed out the preemptive procurement and the competition over the available vaccines by some rich countries have aggravated the deepening sense of global disunity. And this is where we find ourselves. Understandably, every government's first priority is to keep its people safe. And thus, each government is eager to secure enough vaccines for its population. But it is hard to understand why some governments are grabbing the vaccines in volumes that are many times more than their population size. And this only exacerbates the uncertainty for the rest of the world, the other countries. Others are prompted to scramble to get contracts for whatever is left with the pharmaceutical companies that make the vaccines. And those without the resources simply wondering whether they will ever get enough the vaccines for their own populations. And so under the circumstance, I think the COVAX facility has truly been a saving grace, as limited as its ambition is. And I can only be thankful to the foresight of the leaders in the WHO, Gavi and CEPI, who established the mechanism, and certainly hope that it will deliver in its goal of providing the COVID-19 vaccines to 20% of the populations in all member countries equitably. And we should think seriously about turning the COVAX setup into a standing mechanism because, we know that COVID-19 will not be the last story of pandemics hitting around the world. So there has to be a mechanism ready to deal with future novel pathogens. And COVAX, I think, is worth considering and giving support so that it becomes a sustainable mechanism. I think we can take some lessons from the COVAX experience and apply them more generally in building these cooperative structures to support recovery from the pandemic, as well as making progress on climate change, SDGs, collective security, and other global challenges. And so let me offer some points in some very broad terms.
Thank you.
First, strengthen the global health governance built around the WHO. The review by the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response of the performance of the WHO and member states has made an interim report of its findings, and the shortcomings of the WHO setup has been made very clear. What needs to be done, the reporting obligations of member states need to be strengthened, and the WHO more empowered to demand that information from member states. If we are to avoid the uncertainty and transparency and distrust that had hampered the global response to COVID-19 in the initial months. And the goal has to be to ensure full information sharing, full transparency among scientists and medical professionals and disease control authorities around the world, and for their advice to be the basis on which governments make their policies and control measures. Secondly, tackle fake news and disinformation. Throughout the pandemic, infodemics, in the words of Director General Tedros, has had a very corrosive influence on efforts to contain the virus, fueling fear, distrust of science, and hatred of others. And more recently, we've witnessed how misinformation and disinformation can spiral out of control and lead to mob behaviors that can destroy the very core of long-cherished institutions. So it is not enough to encounter one fake news with a fact check and correction, one misinformation plot with an investigation and criminal charge, although such a vigilant response must be pursued in every case where possible. But what is called for, I believe, is visible, persistent leadership to re-establish fact as the basis on which judgments are made and truth is sought. It's been a few years since one Western publication called this the post-truth era, and I think we've become too used to that. It wasn't clear if this was meant as a cynical description of our age, of an age of too much information through too many sources and too many media, making it very difficult to discern fact from fiction, objectivity from subjectivity, or an alarming wake-up call to the degeneration of social debate and governance that is gradually being untethered from facts and evidence. But either way, I think responsible leadership at all levels should make concerted efforts, individually and collectively, to arrest and reverse this post-truth climate. And I think the role of global leaders, such as the Secretary General, such as the Director General, and top leaderships of individual governments, the importance of that role in this regard cannot be overemphasized. 3, strengthen the multi-stakeholder approach. The COVAX facility, which indeed is a multi-stakeholder approach, has brought together governments, international organizations, researchers and experts, private charities, and private companies in search of solutions that are beneficial to all. And this should also be, and to a certain extent already is, the approach in tackling climate change, SDGs, and other global challenges. For example, I think in climate change, in many countries, private companies are way ahead of governments in their ambitions to go green. For example, the RE100 initiative, i.e. Renewable Energy 100%, is gaining impressive ground in many countries, including in my own. The P4G initiative, Partnership for Green Growth and Global Goals, is precisely aimed at strengthening the public-private partnership in tackling climate change and sustainable development goals. And Korea will be hosting the second summit meeting of the P4G in late May. And this, coupled with the ambition of the new Biden administration to hold a climate change summit, we hope this to be a vital stepping stone to a successful outcome at the COP26 in Glasgow later in the year, securing bolder, more ambitious commitments to curb carbon and other greenhouse gases under control. And 4, each country must take responsibility to restore multilateralism. The decisions of the new U.S. administration to return to the Paris Agreement and the WHO has been widely welcomed around the world, especially by countries like Korea that have been beneficiaries and advocates of multilateralism. But it will take much more than the actions on the part of the new U.S. administration to breathe new energy into the UN system. I think to varying degrees, the multilateral organizations that make up the UN system have been long in need of revitalization. The unilateralist tendencies of some major players have further sapped the energy out of them recently. And to be sure, there are structural impediments to a sweeping revamping of the organizations so that they become truly fit for purpose in the fast-changing world. But still, giving up or leaving the hard work to others is not an option. It is in the self-interest of each and all countries that depend on global norms and the rules-based international order to actively contribute ideas, experience, and resources to shoring up the multilateral order and its building blocks, such as the United Nations, the WHO, the WTO, the G20, the G7, and many more. And in closing, as I prepare to leave my post, I am very assured that my government will remain at the forefront of these endeavors. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the impressive job you've done in the years where you had this portfolio of foreign minister. We're so privileged to have you here during your last week, Minister, and we know that you will also be doing a lot of exciting things in the future. I'm now turning to His Highness Faisal Al Saud, Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia. We know there's a lot of interest always to the Middle East. We know that there's also been a lot of positive development in the regional cooperation in the GCC in the last month. Gulf solidarity is one of the terms that have been coined, and maybe you'll share with us, Your Highness, what you see for the years to come when it comes to GCC cooperation, but also if something from that cooperation is applicable to the rest of the world. And I also have to remind everyone that we have now used half an hour on two of our speakers, so we have 15 minutes left, so we have to really show solidarity with each other. Your Highness.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be among you today to discuss this important subject. I want to just say I'm glad to share once again a forum with Minister Kyung-Wha. We've shared several forums, and it's always been great working with her and talking to her. And it's of course unfortunate that our last meeting will be over, on such a forum is going to be virtually, but that's the challenges we face. But just wanted to say she's been an excellent colleague and worked very, very strongly exactly on the field we're talking about, which is multilateralism and cooperation. The subject is incredibly important, and we've seen this last year into 2020 that without working together, we can't really address the global challenges. And the Kingdom had the presidency of the G20 during 2020, and we had to very quickly shift focus in our presidency agenda to deal with the challenges of COVID-19 and to muster global efforts in responding to that. And that was well responded to by G20 colleagues, and they stepped forward, and we were able to achieve a lot of cooperative efforts, including $11 trillion in stimulus, $15 billion of debt relief for poorer countries, $21 billion contributed to a response to the pandemic, including equitable distribution of vaccines, and including supporting the COVAX facility, which I agree is something critically important. And I just hope that we can maintain that momentum, because as my colleagues has mentioned, we are seeing some unfortunate backtracking, some unfortunate loss of that spirit. And unless we all work together to overcome the challenges of COVID-19, we are all going to continue to be at risk. And key among that, of course, is equitable distribution of vaccines. And that links to your question, because without regional cooperation, we can't have effective global cooperation. And that's why it was important that we achieve what we did in the Al-Ula Declaration, which is bringing back the GCC into full cooperation. And building on that, we will be able to help secure the regional stability, secure that we are focused within our region on developing on the very important opportunities that we have here, but also on dealing with the many challenges. And that cooperation will only serve to bolster the global cooperation. And we've heard again today that all the challenges that we face as a global community require working together, whether it's something as novel as the COVID-19 outbreak. I'm sure we will have other similar challenges in the future, but also things like climate change. And, there we see that just like this region has played a key role in powering the global energy needs and in helping power the global economy, we will also play an important role in meeting the global community's carbon neutrality targets. So we are already working with our European partners in developing green and blue hydrogen, and these efforts are going to be key to achieving an effective response to the challenges of climate change. So again, without working together, without effective cooperation, without a real global outlook, none of us will succeed. So the Kingdom will continue to work together with its partners and is focused really on delivering not just regional cooperation, but global cooperation on all those subjects that we all as a global community face, and that will take leadership and responsibility. And I'm sure that all of our colleagues in the global community will be focused on working together on delivering that leadership that focuses on not just cooperation, but achieving all of those goals that we all share, which is delivering prosperity, peace, and security for the people of the world.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. Shukran. Just a short question before I go to the Indonesian Foreign Minister. We know that there is a lot of thinking around the new Biden administration and its policy on the Middle East. And you, Your Highness, you were before also the Kingdom's ambassador to Berlin, so you know also Europe well. Any thoughts on this?
I think the region and the region's security remains a key focus for both Europe and the US. We've heard very clear statements from the Biden administration and the key people on foreign policy in the Biden administration that they're going to address the challenges within our region with very open eyes and a clear focus on making sure that we continue to have stability and security. We're of course going to have a dialogue about the various regional challenges, not least Iran's destabilizing activity and its ramping up of its nuclear program. And we are, I think, quite confident that we're working with the US and our European partners, we will be able to overcome these challenges. In the end, we see these challenges as posing a risk not just to the region, but to the global community and global prosperity. And really, what our hope is that we can move from these the focus in our region on security issues and on challenges of a military nature to really focusing on how can we be part of delivering global prosperity, global innovation, and being a driver of those elements. And I think that's something that both the US and Europe agree with us on. So we will work very closely with our partners to deliver that.
Shukran, Your Highness. Let's now move to Retno Marsudi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. And Minister, you're also one of three co-chairs in the whole COVAX initiative with Gavi. And thank you for your leadership on this and global vaccination. You listen to your colleagues here, and there has been different perspectives on how we can secure also multilateralism and cooperation in a post-COVID world. Indonesia, largest Muslim country in the world when it comes to population, also situated in a very interesting geopolitical and security context. So, Minister, your thoughts.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Børge, for having me. First, I would like to share the same concern with my previous speakers about the vaccine nationalism. And thank you, Taro, for mentioning about ASEAN. Kyung-Wha, thank you for mentioning about COVAX facility. And Faisal, congratulations for your leadership in the G20 last year. Børge, 2 days ago, I co-chaired the COVAX AMC engagement group together with Minister Karina Kool of Canada and Dr. Lia Tadese of Ethiopia. It was attended by more than 400 participants, I think almost 500 participants. Through COVAX facility, the AMC 92 economies could obtain up to or hope to obtain up to 20% of their population. And during the meeting, we discussed various details in preparation of equitable and fair access to vaccine for all to take place. Equitable and fair access to vaccine for all countries is a very important issue. It is not only important for developing and least developed countries, but also important for developed countries and for the world. We recover stronger if we recover together. So, colleagues, I'm very glad that the principle of equitable and fair access to vaccine has received strong support from all of us. And to ensure its implementation, I believe there are three main issues. First is the availability of vaccine. Here, the cooperation with manufacturer is key. And in the last couple of days, as mentioned by the previous speaker, I read the glooming news that vaccine nationalism remains happening. If it is continued, for sure, it will jeopardize vaccine multilateralism. And then second is the financial support. Here, we need strong cooperation with donors, multilateral development banks, philanthropies, and others. Third, readiness of developing and least developed countries to receive vaccine. This is not an easy part at all. Most likely, the vaccine that will be distributed to participants of AMC 92 will require ultra cold chain. So the question is, do they have this kind of infrastructure? And there is also issue of regulatory and indemnity. That is another challenges for AMC 92 economies. So I have to give appreciation to Gavi, Japi, WHO, and all of us. Kyung-Wha mentioned about it, who are working night and day to materialize the hope of all of us, especially the developing and least developed countries. The fact that Gavi, Japi, and WHO, despite the nature of the pandemic and its challenges, has mobilized all efforts to make COVAX facility work, it is a miracle. Gavi plans to pull 2 billion doses of vaccine. This is great. And it is this kind of spirit, the spirit of collaboration and cooperation that we need to continuously strengthen. So please stop the politicization of vaccine. Please stop the vaccine nationalism. And we must remind ourselves, vaccine is a humanitarian issue. Vaccine is not a political issue. So it is my hope that the vaccine multilateralism succeeds. Then what we can say, multilateralism delivers. Thank you, Børge.
No, thank you so much for that very, very important appeal, Minister Retno Marsudi. I hope millions of people listen to this. I would also then like to go to Madame Fu Ying. You wrote a very, very interesting article in the New York Times a few days ago that I read with a great interest, where you looked at G2 collaboration in the years to come, China and the US. And I would also like, this morning I moderated a session with Prime Minister Lee from Singapore, and he said the most important relationship in the decade to come is between the US and China, and we have to get it right. You even coined a new expression or a term, Madam, a competition, like cooperation and competition at the same time. So it would be very interesting to hear your views on this, and also related to what Minister Kono said at the beginning. Madam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I want to say that I share the concerns and propositions by the previous speakers about the international fight against the pandemic. When the Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke at the Davos agenda in his special address, he said that humanity endured multiple crises really seen in human history. And he also said that there is no doubt that humanity will prevail over the virus and emerge even stronger from the disaster. And I also agree with you that major countries, all countries in the world, should join hands in fighting pandemic. And it has been disappointing that over the past years, we haven't seen the kind of unity that was demonstrated when we entered the 21st century during the fight against terrorism, for example, and the fight against the general efforts to fight against the financial crisis. And that is why I think there's so much attention given to the relationship between China and U.S. And there's such a high expectation of China and U.S. coming together, joining hands together with the rest of the world to overcome this serious threat to mankind. You mentioned my article. I think there's no denying. I think we cannot underestimate the serious damage the China-U.S. relationship has endured over the past years. And it's a challenge for both sides to find the right way forward. My observation is that the current new U.S. administration needs time to estimate what are the areas it has to cooperate with China and what are the areas it needs to manage with China, avoiding conflicts. And for the Chinese side, I think we also need to reflect and observe what is the intention, what is the next move by the United States. We are all aware that in international relations, it's very important for countries to have accurate judgment, accurate estimation of each other. And how China and U.S. define their relationship is important, not only for the two countries, but also to the world. I noticed that the new White House spokesperson, Jane Psaki, said in one of his statements to the effect that strategic competition with China is a defining feature of the 21st century. Admittedly, there are elements of competition in our economic relationship, which, as I described in my article to the New York Times, I even dubbed a new word, co-opetition, cooperation plus competition. But I think that competition should be fair and for the purpose of a common progress. That's the kind of competition which exists in any relationship. But the concept of strategic competition, I think it won't find much agreement here in China. China's fundamental view for the 21st century is to maintain peace and cooperation, peace and stability. And China has no intention of vying for world dominance. You don't hear people here in China advocating for competing with the United States for world dominance. It just doesn't exist. Should America hegemonistic power appear to be in some kind of decline, it would has to be caused by its own mistakes, like strategic overstretch. The future world trend, from our point of view, is more likely to be multipolarization rather than hegemonistic replacement. I myself was quite astonished, you notice in my article, by the unbridled and chaotic policy measures that was coming out of Washington over the past years. And I'm curious too to see what's next. Most people expect that there can be some rational and professional approach and sensible policies. On the part of China, there has been some positive signals. In his congratulatory telegram to President Joe Biden, which was sent on November the 25th, 2020, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that promoting healthy and stable development of China-US relations not only serves the fundamental interests of the people of both countries, but also meets the common expectation of the international community. So, in addition, the Chinese Consular and Foreign Minister Wang Yi has proposed that the two sides work out working lists on areas of cooperation, areas of dialogues, and issues that need to be properly handled. You asked about cooperation. I think many of you mentioned that the united global response to COVID-19 is the most pressing task for the world today. And I think China, US, and together with the other countries, we should encourage health experts and scientists to maximize their role and to intensify research to help fight the virus. We also need to cooperate on vaccine development and the distribution, as was mentioned. And we should also coordinate policies on such issues as cross-border traveling, on global norms regarding the measures, the efforts we're taking against the pandemic. Furthermore, discussion and cooperation on global issues such as climate change also needs to be resumed, and the American return to the Paris Agreement is a welcoming step. There's also the need for cooperation in the newly emerging areas like AI, like 5G. I think some of the Chinese companies have been successful, and that seemed to have sparked fear in the US, which I think is entirely unnecessary. Instead, I think there's a need for joining hands between China, US, and other countries to develop the norms governing the application of AI technologies, which is an urgent need. So generally speaking, I think the world problems are complex, and China's approach is to uphold multilateralism and develop a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to use the last minutes, Ministers, Excellencies, if you're okay, to build on what just Madame Fu Ying addressed. Probably one of the most defining geopolitical developments this decade will be the relationship between the largest and second largest economy in the world, China and the US, and it will also have implications for all of us. Is it possible to compete and cooperate at the same time? You know, US President once said it's possible to chew gum and walk at the same time. It was Lyndon B. Johnson that said this. But at the same time, there is also worries that there will be a total decoupling. There will be two different systems, like a Chinese system and then an American system. Maybe going to Minister Kono first. You heard what Madame Fu Yang said. No, you've seen the first reactions also from the Biden administrations. Japan is one of the largest FDI investors in China, rely a lot on trade with China, but at the same time you also said you're very supportive of this alliance of democracies. Short comment from you, then I'll go to Korea and then to Indonesia and then to Saudi Arabia. Minister Kono.
Yes, the biggest difference between now and during the Cold War is Soviet economy was quite independent, but the Chinese economy is quite integrated into the global supply chain. So we definitely have to work together, and we definitely have to manage the situation. That's for sure. But it seems to me that there are two different values, and we really hope that we shouldn't separate this liberal international order between two camps. So we recognize that some countries have a different political system, but if we can share the value and if we can manage the situation, I think we can save the planet.
No, thank you. And let's then go to Minister Kyung-Wha. You heard Minister Kono earlier on.
Yes, well, I think I share the same points. I think the world is too interconnected. Our businesses work all over the world. We have businesses hugely invested in China and the United States. China is our #1 trading partner. The United States is our second. And I think the idea of decoupling, maybe in certain areas where it's of crucial strategic interest to countries, that I think may already be happening. But overall, this idea of a complete decoupling, I think, is unrealistic. I think the business interest around the world is too entrenched for that to happen. Competition, certainly in certain areas, but cooperation. So I think Ambassador Fu Ying had it just right when she said competition. I think on values, I think, yes, we all, Korea is a very vibrant liberal democracy, hugely places huge importance on human rights and freedom of expression and so on and so forth. And we very much share that like-minded with other liberal democracy, but that should not prevent us from cooperating with societies that don't necessarily share those values. The world is a very complicated place, and reality is not clean cut. I always say reality is very messy. And I think the job of leaders at national level and global levels is to manage that messiness and find solutions that are beneficial to all. Win-win, understand each other, and try to find ways that are beneficial to all sides. Not easy. But nobody said that the work, that the job of being foreign ministers or leading governments or leading global organizations was an easy job. It's a tough job.
It is. I think we all can subscribe to that. Minister Retno Marsudi, realities can be messy. I think also Indonesia is very close to both the US and China, and also being a democracy. Reflections on your side, how are you going to do this balancing? Do you see a decoupling?
Børge, you asked about whether compete and cooperation is possible. The answer is yes, and Indonesia hopes that ASEAN and China can cooperate better. That is my first point. My second point, ASEAN will continue to play its role to maintain peace and stability in the region. And then my third point, my last point, ASEAN offers to all our partners, including the US and China, to cooperate with ASEAN, including through the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. So let us mainstream the cooperation instead of rivalry. Thank you, Børge.
No, thank you so much, Minister. Your Highness, traditionally Saudi Arabia has been very, very close to the United States, but we've also seen recently that the footprint of China is increasing in the Middle East and North Africa. So reflections on this collaboration or competition, the competition piece from Your Highness' side.
Well, the kingdom, of course, is an integrated part of the global economy, and that means that we are strong partners for both the US and China economically. We're also, of course, strategically very much aligned with the US. And I think we have seen that cooperation is possible, and not just possible, it is absolutely necessary. Without cooperation, we can't deliver prosperity, we can't deliver security to our individual nations or to the global community. Really, we are too integrated, we are too dependent on each other, and we receive too much benefits from each other's cooperation and trade for it to make sense to move to an aggressive posture or a posture of competition and decoupling. Now, of course, we always compete, and that's that's fair, and it's a competition is healthy because it ensures the delivery of more efficient forms of governance. But as long as that competition is not is in the realm of the corporate world and not a competition of geostrategic dimensions, we can manage. And it's important that we understand that in order for us to protect the global community and to work towards delivering prosperity, as I mentioned, and even respond to challenges like COVID-19, which is not the last challenge of this sort that we will face, we will have to maintain the focus on cooperation and integration. Otherwise, we put all of us at risk.
Shukran. I think, Madam Ying, you will have the privilege then to have the kind of famous last words there. Of course, I will have the right to thank everyone after you. We're running really on overtime, so if you could do it in a couple of minutes, that would be great. But you will have the last words from China this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Dr. Kissinger's visit to China. And for half a century, we have managed, China has successfully integrated into the world economy, at the same time maintained its own political integrity. So that shows that it is possible to have both, to work with other countries in areas we can, at the same time defending our fundamental interests. So we disagree with the decoupling. And we also, I think Asia, the Indonesian Foreign Minister mentioned that ASEAN is exemplary in demonstrating the kind of spirit of openness, of inclusiveness. And Asia has been able to maintain, every country maintain their political integrity at the same time having openly, have a wide economic and cultural contacts. So I think as long as we have this spirit of mutual respect, respecting that there is a boundary for political system, and then respecting the fact that each system, each culture can succeed in its own way, with that kind of spirit, I'm sure that we can have both. Thank you.
No, Chacha, thank you so much to all of you. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I'm so thankful for your contributions. It is such a excellent panel, and of course a special thank you to Minister Kyung-Wha, since there's only 1 week left being foreign minister. But I can assure you there is also life after being foreign ministers. You know, the former Norwegian Prime Minister Kåre Willoch once said to me, you know, it's much nicer to have been Prime Minister than being Prime Minister. So on that note, and I'm also sure that the discussion about the G2 China-US relationship, we will have ample time to come back to in the coming decade, and I hope I can also invite these panelists again on that topic, but also other extremely important topic like the fight against the pandemic and also how to strengthen global cooperation. Thank you so much from Geneva, and good night to you in Asia. Thank you.